Ladies and gentlemen, we are back once again, episode 69 of the ABJ Podcast with my guest, HC Loc. Guys, I know we talked about it last episode, but this will be the last live podcast for a little bit. I have to take some time away, figure some things out, step away, and start doing a little bit of a shoot job again. If you're in the wrestling business, that's what we call it, a shoot job. And figure some things out. I will be back very soon. Don't worry. Just got to take a little bit of time off, maybe a month, maybe two. Maybe while I'm away, who knows? I may find ways to schedule some interviews and record stuff. And maybe once I'm getting closer to start back up, you might see some pre-recorded interviews drop. So we never know. Just keep your eyes open. If you can, check out the links below for not just myself, but my guests, so you can follow us on social media, stay up with everything that's going on with us, and continue to follow the podcast and all of my guests who have been on it. I want to thank everyone who has been on the podcast and has supported, people who have went and bought merchandise and all that stuff and supported me on this journey since October. But sometimes life throws some curveballs, and I try to fight my way through it without going through the necessary steps. And now is the time where I got to kind of take a step away, figure things out. But we'll get there. It's not a goodbye. It's a see you later. But I will be back very, very soon. It's too much fun doing it, and I love meeting new people. But I want to say thank you to my sponsor real quick for Suplex Vintage Wrestling out of Philadelphia. So, guys, it has finally happened. A whole store fully dedicated to vintage pro wrestling. They said it can never be done, but I've seen it with my own eyes. Suplex Vintage Wrestling is a store curated for wrestling fans by wrestling fans and located on 5th Street in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, just one block south of on South Street in the heart of Queen Village. Their shop features the largest collection of vintage pro wrestling under one roof. Their selection includes classic designs featuring your favorite wrestlers from the Golden Age, Attitude Era, internationals, indies, and more. And if you're tired of watching premium live events alone, then SVW hosts the best watch parties since your friend Kyle's birthday party when you were 12 years old. And if shirts and watch parties aren't your thing, let's not forget their large selection of figures, replica belts, trading cards, and their t-shirts and hats from rare wrestling memorabilia. They have something for every wrestling fan out there. So what are you waiting for? Check them out at suplex.svw on Instagram or at suplexsvw.com. Their online store is awesome. You can order really cool stuff and let them satisfy your pro wrestling needs. They also have some old school title belts. My guests might be interested in checking them out one time if he's in the Philly area. They got those ROH tag team champions sitting there. And my guest here was a former ROH tag team champion with the Chaos Crew. So we'll talk more about that. But this guy has been up and down the road. He's probably my first guest that has made it to the dance. You know what I mean? A lot of these independent people are chasing that dream. They want to have that moment. They want to experience that life. And HC Loc here has done essentially everything you can do in this business. The referee, tag team champions, first ever intergender match on WWE, WWF history, ECW, from the ring crew to wrestling in front of live crowds. I mean, this guy has done it all. Now he has his own school, and he's training some of the top talent that you're going to see on the independent scene in the near future. And right now, they're just fantastic people. So he's done it all, and he's one of the most respected people in this business. He has a great mind, and it's always a pleasure to see him, and I love seeing him every time at shows. And him and his crew come in and they just dominate shows, and they always steal the night. So without further ado, let me bring in my guest, HC fucking Loc, baby.
Hey, buddy.
What's going on?
Hey, buddy. Thanks for those kind words.
It's all 100% true, bud. I met you for the first time. I don't know why my phone's all of a sudden blowing up now, but I met you for the first time at the Sanctuary. You came in with your team. And it kind of became this thing for a while at Sanctuary where Creative Pro guys were coming, your crew was coming, guys from Syracuse were coming, and it was almost like a team versus team battle every week. We were kind of mixing matching people from different schools. And it was putting together some really, really fun, interesting matches. And we got to see Syrian Rain and TJ Epics and all these people just kind of come in. And then you had some good matches in there too with, Johnny Moran and a few other people you went in and tore it up. And it was just a really fun summer where that was the summer I think the Sanctuary was working triple overtime, where there was probably something going on every single weekend. And I got a lot of my reps on commentary and just got to rep after rep after rep, because that was my early beginning stages of doing it. And what better person to to learn and watch in the ring it was just those amazing, talented people.
Yeah, man, that place was fun. We always enjoyed coming down there. It's such a beautiful building, and the production is so cool. And a lot of times guys don't get the chance to work in front of that. Certainly not very often on the independents. And the way that's filmed and the way you do the commentary and the way Trotsky does all of his production, it's very good. I'm big on trying to get my students, obviously goal number one is to entertain a live crowd, but to get them ready to see how they do things on television too. And there's a good place to practice that. So
yeah,
we love
the
camera. It was always fun.
Yep.
Yeah.
And the safety's
sure.
to the roof. That ring, I've never take bumps, but that ring, they said, is a dream to fall on.
It is. I mean, not to blow kayfabe on it here a little bit. It's almost difficult because it's like, oh, I'm the type of guy where it's got to hurt a little bit. I got to feel it a little bit. You know what I mean? And that is, but I mean, but in the spirit of what that place is, which is, I don't know, that's like a training camp. That's like a workout place, place to go get reps in and get better. And if you can do that and not worry about getting hurt too, I mean, that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah. Well, let's rewind the clock here, HC, and let's go back to the beginning. When, at your earliest memory, when did you remember just falling in love with professional wrestling, watching it on TV or whatever it may be?
I can remember specifically I don't know how old I might have been, maybe 10 years old. That's probably pretty close. And it was winter time, and my dad had us out back stacking wood. And I didn't want to help. I didn't want to, looking for any reason to get away from that. So I'm like, Dad, I got to go use the bathroom. All right, get back, Matty, as he still calls me. And so I go in, and of course, instead of using the bathroom, I turn on the TV. And there's Adrian Adonis, not Flower Shop Adrian Adonis, NYC badass Adrian Adonis. And I'd never seen wrestling before, but I saw a ring. So I thought, is this boxing? What's going on? But he was a heel, so he was hollering at the crowd and hollering at the referee. And I thought I was witnessing something huge. I'm like, this guy, is freaking out. He's being a jerk here on television when he's supposed to be wrestling. I had no idea. I mean, I'd never heard of it before. Certainly never saw it before, and had no inkling that it was a work whatsoever. So I just was captivated. I'm like, holy crap. And I went out and told my dad, and I can remember him kind of giggling, but didn't say nothing or anything. And it was a while after, and then I became so obsessed with it and finding it. And of course, everything was like everybody else my age. Everything was Hulk Hogan around those days. And I can remember specifically the day being all pumped up, getting excited, telling my parents about this big match coming up or whatsoever going on. And I don't know, can Hogan and Mr. T really beat these guys at WrestleMania or something like that? And went to my room, and my dad hollers, hey, come back here. So I did. And he says to my mother, he goes, tell him. I go, tell me what? And I'm just a little kid. She goes, it's fake. I go, what do you mean? She goes, they know who's going to win. I go, how do you know? And I remember my mother specifically saying, it was in the paper, which is bullshit, right? Yeah. But she's just trying to convince me that she knew. But that suspension of disbelief and getting into it. And especially with today's fans, you don't really, sometimes, you don't always really expect them to believe it's all 100% real. But if you can create any type of doubt or suspend disbelief, it still gets me. A really good false finish or a really hot promo where it's like, did he clear that with the other guy or not? Stuff like that. It's the same formula, still works all these years later. And I didn't want to believe it wasn't real. I went to my first day of wrestling school, half-ass hoping everybody's wrong. I'm going to go in there and they're going to, I knew better. Obviously at some point you're like, okay, you can't really whip somebody off the ropes and expect them to come back. You know what I mean? Yeah. And stuff like that. But
that doesn't work.
But they're still right. But I was so much, I was so in love with it, and in those days I went to wrestling school in 1994. I told you I get long-winded with these answers. I went to wrestling school. I went to wrestling school in 1994, and if there was internet at all, I didn't have it. I never heard of a dirt sheet. I did nothing. I didn't know I never heard the word kayfabe, mark, shoot, work. No, I never heard any of that. Nothing. And I was shocked to know that people call spots in the ring. I had no idea, and we can never go back to those times, but it was kind of a beautiful thing. I was the last of that generation, that where all right, now we're going to smarten you up, kid, because
Yeah.
we didn't now people, and I have great kids. I mean, I can't tell you the last time I had to, well, I could tell you the last time I had to reprimand somebody for being disrespectful, maybe fairly recently, but I got real good kids at my school, but they know all the lingo and know the gist of it before they even come in. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
it's just different. Yeah.
Now, did they teach you the special Carney speak when you went to school, or was that already out?
No. My trainer didn't so much. But in my first year, I started hearing the veterans do it in the locker room, and sometimes they would do it in front of me and guys my age because, I'm a kid. I'm not even all the way smartened up to the business, really. You know what I mean? And it was. I mean, I'm not going to say it was better. I mean, 'cause it's so great now. But
Yeah.
I mean, that was a special time when when you really counted on whether all those people in the stands thought it was 100% real or not. But your money was made and your tickets were sold on never breaking that, never going to dinner with them, with your opponent, stuff like that. I mean, it was. I'm not going to, to each their own. I'm not going to say it was better, but I liked it. It was like you really felt like you were part of something. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
felt like you were really honored to. I'm in this club, and you might think but you don't know. Now that's still kind of the case. You know what I mean? The problem is that everybody thinks they do know. Yeah, I mean they just do. You know what I mean? It's you go to I don't know, go anywhere. You know what I mean? Or somebody doesn't like something that they saw on Raw and they're posting or chanting, that's bad booking. You're not even supposed to know what the word booking means. I mean, I know that we can't, you can't unring the bell, you know what I mean? But it's so much different than it was back in those days.
I think the people who are doing it the best right now is probably AEW, because WWE is so at the point where they're just like, we don't care if you believe it's real or not. For us, it's a production. This is we don't care. And sometimes we'll peek out the curtain and say something that we know that and only the smart fans will get it. But AEW, like the Punk stuff, like people are still like, I think it's this or I think it's that, and they're probably sitting backstage going, we're back. You know what I mean? Like, MJF is doing beautifully at that, where it's like
MJF does great
people
work,
still think he's going to quit the company in 2 years. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they're doing a great job with that. But I think the beautiful part about this business now is, at least for me, when I'm trying to get someone new who's into the business, or trying to get someone who's never watched wrestling or only knows wrestling as the fake sport, you know what I mean? I'm like, well, right there, then just don't think that you're watching a sport. If you treat it like a sport, you're going to expect a sport and you're not going to enjoy it. Go like you're going to a theater. It's action theater. You're going to see, and I love the term from The Sanctuary, but you're going to see stunt fighting. Go in as if you're going to watch a heel versus a good guy versus a bad guy. You're going to watch Avengers in a ring. And if you buy into the storylines, if you buy into the characters and what you're supposed to do with those characters, and eliminate the idea that it's a legitimized sport, you will have a better time. And because you buy in, because when you go see Phantom of the Opera, that's not a real monster under that mask. It's all theater, but you buy into it and you suck yourself into the drama of it and you have a good time. I think if more people see now professional wrestling in that sense, I think they buy into it more and they have a better time, instead of always trying to figure out the magic trick, if that makes sense.
It does. There's a little asterisk I'll put next to that. With the way some people work these days, and I'm not going to fall for burying anybody on TV that's on television right now. But there are certain people out there that work more, and it's all entertainment, but they work more where you can tell, boy, we hope you enjoy my performance, as opposed to, I'm trying to win this goddamn match. You know what I mean? Yes. And that's what's entertaining to me. The Phantom of the Opera, great analogy. Okay. And we know that that's not really a monster under that mask, but at no point in that play, at no point does he lift up that mask and say, hey, this is all fake, right? And then put it back down and go back to doing his thing. Absolutely. And I hate wrestlers that do that. In not so many words. And I'm not saying that they don't admit it. So I hate people that admit it's a work. I'm talking to you right now. I'm not saying that. I'm saying when they do stuff, although I do admit there's a market for it, and that's a beautiful thing about the business right now. For my taste, I like my matches to look competitive. I like it to be the entertainment comes to me. Jerry Jarrett had a sign on his office wall that said personal issues draw money, and I have a picture of that picture, and it hangs in my school, and I believe that that's where that comes from. A speech I give all the time to my students in every seminar I ever give is I compare certain kind of wrestling to fireworks. 4th of July is coming up, timely topic. On the 4th of July, you go see the fireworks and they're awesome. I mean, it's so cool. How I can't imagine how they do that, how they built those things, and you're ooh-ah, and that's awesome. But if they do that every Wednesday or every Monday night, before, yeah, that was cool, but I don't got to see it. I saw that. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And so if certain kind of matches are just about, I got to do all this cool stuff, and it is really cool, and I can't do it, but I'm not going to sell it. I'm not going to go for a cover. I don't think that there's any jeopardy of the match being over, because whatever the case may be, like literally you'll see this sometimes, did a 450 splash to the outside through a table. Literally less than 20 seconds later, both guys are back up running spots in the ring. Takes me right out of it. I don't begrudge anybody for loving every second of that, And there's room for both. The cool thing about it is that about wrestling these days is that there really can be something for everybody. You know what I mean?
Show.
You can have Bryan Danielson versus Okada in a worked UFC fight, basically, with some pro wrestling high spots in it. Mm-hmm. On the same card that Orange Cassidy sticks his hands in his pocket and fake kicks people in the shin, and people lose their mind for both. That's a beautiful thing. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, it's the Muppet Show. It's the Muppet Show in ropes.
Right. There you go. Yeah.
and then a spooky guy comes out, and you get the range of emotion. That's why I love doing commentary. But at the end of a commentary show, I'm mentally exhausted, because I have to, like, as the narrator, you have to put yourself in the emotions of your highs and your lows and your fear and your not fear and you're laughing and you're not laughing. And it's a gamut of feelings. And because if you play it straight the whole way through, it's not fun for the people watching at home.
Sure. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. It's such a beautiful industry. I love it.
I love it too. It still gives me goosebumps.
Yeah. When did you transition from a fan growing up, watching and everything, to going into school? And how did you find your school at that point in time? Obviously, nowadays people can just go on and Google machine it up and say wrestling schools near me. And there's a lot of wrestling schools, but at some point in time, there was only a handful. Yeah.
And I didn't have any idea how people got into it or anything like that. There was an ad in one of the After mags, probably PWI.
I love Abner.
Yeah, me too. For Wonderful Willie. For Al Snow's school, Body Slammers gym out in Lima, Ohio. And I had to get up the nerve. I was always so shy. So, I mean, we could tell a million stories of that. Have to get up the nerve to call out there, dial all the numbers but one, and think about it. Okay, hit that last number. And then I'm going to talk to somebody, have to get up the nerve to do it and talk to whoever it was. And they mailed me information. And I'd really wanted to do it, but I kind of chickened out. I was like, for everybody, and this will sound crappy, but literally everybody, every family member, every friend. You got to remember, this is 1994. Maybe I started looking for schools in 93. And if Rey Mysterio I don't even think Rey Mysterio had been on ECW TV. And if he was, I hadn't seen him. Not that I'm a little taller than Rey, but there wasn't anybody my size. And if so, it just didn't. It was either shot that way in a certain way, or it wasn't talked about, or everybody had and worked heights and weights anyway. And I was constantly told I couldn't do it because of my size. And I'd never lived away from home. And here I am going out to do this thing that everybody I know tells me is an impossibility for me anyway. And I'm kind of chickening out. And I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. If it's meant to be, it's meant to be. And as corny as this sounds, and it's super corny, I can remember being home on a Sunday afternoon, and not to get all philosophical or religious on you, and I am a big believer that it's nobody's business what anybody believes in. I don't, but I don't know if you want to call it fate or God or whatever. A Sunday afternoon, watching television, and that old movie Body Slam came on. I don't know if you ever saw that. It's way before your time, but it was awesome. And I'm like, is this my sign? I don't know. And it was so awesome. And then I got done and I switched channels. And immediately after that, I switched the channels. And remember the old show Night Court? That was on. And in that episode, Bull, the bailiff, he was a pro wrestler in there. And I'm literally telling myself, like, holy shit, what's going? And then the next night, swear to God on all 6 of my children and 2 grandchildren that the next night on my local news, a guy named Robert Bailey came on saying he started Cruncher's Gym Pro Wrestling School 25 minutes away from my house in Elmira, New York. And I drove down there and I was his first student. And, it's aside from those kids and grandkids and a wife or 2, it's been my entire life ever since then.
Yeah. I mean, you have, I said in the intro, man, you have done probably everything you can possibly do in this industry, from ring crew to training to now training yourself, refereeing on TV, then being a worker on TV, holding championships all over the place. When you first start off and you're going through that training, and obviously you're starting to learn, you talked a little bit about how it was backstage, and it's much different than it is backstage in a locker room than it is now. I think everything backstage, then I don't know if I would have personally been able to handle it, the old school way of things. But it is a much different world. And you kind of, like you said, you're that last generation of blending in the old school with the new school. And you're a good representation of what wrestling should be. You know what I mean? And when you got your first set of matches, how was it finally getting your training done and going through everything and then being told, hey, suit up, you're going in for your first match?
Oh man, it was great. I'd spent about 18 months, which is just crazy. I mean, it's just how things lined up. But my first 18 months in the business
Oh, we might have lost.
And I'd do.
Oh, there he goes.
And then maybe a tag team once in a while. But it was my first match was January 15th, 1995. And I didn't have a singles match until August 6th, 1996. So, but, I'm hauling the ring and doing security and doing all the things, paying your dues every weekend or as often as there was an independent show. Independent wrestling wasn't so big back then, so it probably wasn't every weekend, but I was still training every day. So, I mean, it was great. But, you think back on it now, I didn't know anything. But I was excelling at wrestling school. So much so that the Carney guy, as much as I love him, who owned the place, would, after, not too long, he would only pay the trainer came from Pittsburgh to Elmira every week because there was no pro wrestlers around, to teach us. And he would start bringing them in only every other week. So, and then have me show the rest of the class stuff that I'd learned. And I didn't know anything. You know what I mean? I was just excelling in the class, which was weird because I was never an athlete in high school or anything like that. I just happened to have an aptitude for it. But you asked what it was like to finally transition and to do it. I was nervous as could be. And, but my first singles match, believe it or not, was with Steve Carino. And we were 2 young green kids, didn't know nothing. I watched it. I lived for 20 years thinking that, we were about the same there. He helped me through that, but we were just kids. And then somebody found that thing and posted it on YouTube, and I watched it. And I'm like, I didn't know anything. And he was as green as he was, maybe a year in the business at that point, or a year more than me, or something like that, And but he was working every weekend, and he helped me so much, And he would, that was a running theme. He would years later as well. But but it was awesome.
If you're listening, write down that name, Carino, because I think there's another young guy coming up with that last name you're going to be seeing pretty soon.
Oh, yes. I love him.
Yep. Some rumors I'm hearing, maybe you'll be seeing him on a 3-letter moniker TV show pretty soon.
It's possible. Yeah, I heard.
I heard a very good tryout. Yeah.
From what I know, there might be a little stall in that action, but I think it's going to end up that way for sure.
Good.
Yeah.
I sure hope so. That kid kills it. What another
awesome.
sanctuary kid. Another sanctuary kid.
Yeah, he's awesome. Yeah.
So in was it 99 when this happened, right? No, 90. Yeah, 99, 98.
What are you talking about? The Luna match?
Yes, you
that was not before I went to ECW, actually. I'm not sure how long. But
how did that come together? Were you brought in as extra talent, or?
Yeah, I just brought in as an extra, and I hounded Howard Finkel all the time. Again, sitting at my telephone, getting up the nerve to call him. Hi, Mr. Finkel. My name is Matt Knowles. I'm a professional wrestler from. I'd like to come in, be extra talent, and mailing him stuff all the time. And he was booking the extras at those times, and I remember the day coming home to my parents' house, and there was a message from that famous voice on the answer machine saying, "I think we can put you to work." So they did, and again, I was small. I mean, there's, I say 5'8", but I might be lying. 5'7", 5'8", somewhere in there.
It's on the boots.
Yeah, it even says 5'8" on my driver's license. So hell with it. But so I got there and I was so scared. They said, "Put your bags down and go to catering." And thank God when I walked into the catering, because there's every star in the world, and you're supposed to say hello to everybody. But I was so shy that I didn't want to, and scared that I didn't want to. Luckily some folks came and said hi to me. But some of the extra talent there I knew from the independents. So I sat at their table, and so Tony Garea comes along and says, "I don't think we have a match for you, but get dressed anyway." All right. Yes, sir. So I did, and I'm just watching the monitor. And Raw had already started, as I recall. Or maybe there was a taped Raw first. I think that might have been it. I think that might have been the case. Something like that. But there was matches in the ring. Maybe dark matches. Doesn't matter. And I could see through the crowd of people backstage around the monitor, here comes Tony Garea looking at me and smiling. And I thought, and he says, "You're going to work with Luna." I said, "Huh, okay." And so, of course, you say, "Yes, sir." So Goldust is going to beat you up a little bit beforehand and do your thing, and they, they literally tell you, we weren't out there very long, literally told you every move to make, and I did quite well at that, I guess. But she was a funny thing about that is, if you ever watch that clip, she hits me with a headbutt, and as Jim Ross called it, dangerously low, which worked out great. But that was supposed to be a splash. She told me to go to a certain spot, and she couldn't make it to me, so it ended up being a headbutt to the nut meat, and which, I mean, it's a woman fighting a man, so I thought that was better anyway, So yeah. Worked out really good. And we got to the back, and she goes, "How was your pee-pee?" I go, "Good, ma'am. Thank you so much." And but it was fun. It was very nerve-wracking. Then I sat there just in the dressing room, and everybody's, Mick Foley's there, and he was awesome, always was. But I think I shared a bench with, I think I shared a bench with King Shamrock and those guys. Yeah, he's great.
Yeah, I love Mick. He's my favorite is Sean, and my number 2 is Mick.
Yeah. So then Dustin would be came by me a couple times. "You all right? You sure you're all right?" I'm like, "Yeah, man. And it's probably a terrible thing to say, but because you certainly don't want to act cocky, but you want to be, not in the least, but you want to be a professional too." And I just said, "Yes, sir. I can't believe I just got the opportunity to do that. Thank you, sir." So, which is funny because I met him years later, and again, was around him years later, and I said, "Hey, do you remember the night Luna worked with a man, and he's had a trillion matches, but how are you going to forget that, right?" Mm-hmm. So there's a guy there in a purple singlet. He goes, "Yeah." I go, "That was me." And he goes, "Oh man," but
when did it set in that you created history? Like, you were the first intergender match on Raw.
Yeah, now it's pretty popular, so it's kind of a, so it's kind of a cool little thing for my resume, a little cool little thing. It's funny though, again, back to the business being different. There was an old job guy named AJ Petruzzi from Allentown, Pennsylvania. He was always on WWE TV and WWF at the time, and I'd worked with him on independents a lot. And he was a Super Destroyers and ECW when they were Eastern Championship Wrestling and all that stuff. And that was a taped Raw I did that I was on. I don't know if I mentioned that earlier, but it was taped. So the next week I watch it at home at my parents' house, and as soon as that match ends, my phone rings, and it's AJ Petruzzi. bitching at me, coming up one side and down the other, saying, "You should have told them you were sick. You should have said no. You shouldn't have that. They'll use you, but you'll never get anything in. You'll never get any out because I lost to a woman." And with no offense to anybody, I get that mentality to some degree, especially back then. But I'm a kid and she's a killer, and Dustin beat me up beforehand, and I have no regrets. And years later, it's certainly not frowned upon at all. So there's certain ways.
Luna's the first female in WWE who was put in a video game. She was the first female to break that barrier, and you were the catalyst. Yeah, that match was the catalyst of her probably being like, all right, now Luna, we're gonna put you in a cage. Like she never crossed that barrier because they didn't have a women's division around her, but they always gave her that work of going out and teaming with Dust or teaming with Bam Bam, or when she was a valet with Shawn. Like she always had that, don't mess with her, she'll kill you. But they had to set that bar somewhere, and that match was a very crucial moment of that. Thanks, man. Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that it's still brought up all these years later. 1998, how long ago was that? So whatever, 25 years ago. I'm a huge fan. So I've been very lucky. I've been I'm another one of my corny sayings I tell my students is we make our own luck. You have to work hard and put yourself in these positions. Mm-hmm. But it's luck nonetheless. I've gotten to be in the right place at the right time, or worked hard enough or impressed the right people, and got to have a few cool things like that in my career. I'm a lucky old man. Yeah. So you go down to a seminar down in Florida, and you meet up with another pretty big name that ends up opening the door for you to enter into what was now known as ECW, correct? Yeah. Yeah. Dory Funk Jr., Coach Funk. He'd been doing them for WWF. That was his gig, and it was the exact same thing, but it would be, they would invite Edge and Christian and Kurt Angle and whoever to Stanford to work out in the warehouse, and they called that the Funkin' Dojo. And as soon as he split from them, in fact, not everybody even knew he was split from them, but he changed the name to the Funkin' Conservatory. And I can remember specifically, I'd already been sticking my nose in at ECW a little bit. I'd show up, help with the ring, and that's what you do, kids. Showed up and help with the ring. Eventually, they let me work out with the guys before doors open, beat the crap out of me. I didn't say nothing but thank you. Come back the next day or the next week, But I hadn't been doing that very long, and I was afforded that opportunity to go to Ocala, Florida, where I met Amy Dumas. She was there, Lita. She was my buddy that whole week. Well, more than that whole week, because we both ended up in ECW right after. She had started there too, but I'd never seen her, so maybe she didn't start. But we both ended up in ECW right after that. But I went down there and I did well, I guess. And Coach was very, very complimentary towards me. I'm not putting myself over just to tell you what he said to me, but at the end of the week, there was 3 people. My buddy Dave DeJohn, who I went to wrestling school with, who wrestled as Danger for a long time, big guy, should have made $1 million. Lita, Amy Dumas, and myself, after everything was done, after the last night, and said, "Coach, can we sit with you and you tell us what you honestly think and what if we have a future?" And he said complimentary. Honestly, the one he complimented the least was Amy, just because her work wasn't quite there yet, but she was beautiful and she was getting it. And it's a cosmetic business, and she got it. Her and Trish obviously are legends. But at the time she was still real green. Not that I wasn't, but I was doing well. I think what helped her out heavily in her early, at least my early memories of what made her stand out was intergender work, because she would just come off the top rope. A guy would be able to catch her. She would do a Hurricane Rana. She would do that. And that she was with S.A. Rios. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I sat with Coach at the end of the week, and he said, "I think you're a great carpenter," which means you know how to build a match. I said, his exact words were, "I think you can draw money for any company in the world. I think ECW is your best bet, and I'd like to help."
I mean, I could get those few sentences tattooed on me because that's word for word. And I've told the story a million times, and it was an honor, And he called Tommy Dreamer for me. And then the very next week, it was still help with the ring, still get beat up, but it was, I want to see you have a practice match beforehand. And before, not just workout, I want to see you have a practice match. So I did. He took me to a side. He said, very good. You bump good. You sell real good. He said, I can't offer you a job, but you're always welcome here, and who knows what will happen. And that began 2 months, and that was back when we were doing 4 shots a week. 2 months of me going everywhere on my own dime. Another lesson for the kiddos out there. And I had a wife and kids too. I'm not saying, I had a wife and kids too. I'm not saying it was the most responsible thing in the world, but we got by. 4 shots a week for 2 months, setting up the ring, and working out with Tracy Smothers or whoever, tearing down the ring. And then finally, we're in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania, where I met Colby Carino when he was 3 years old. His dad brought him to a ECW show. And he said, hi, Tommy Dima. And I tell him that every time I see him. But at any rate, and now I wrestle him when I see him. It's so crazy. I'm so old. But Bill Alfonso came up to me and said, go find Roadkill, Danny Doran, Chris Chetty, Angel DeVito, who of course is my partner later, and maybe a couple other people, and then bring them to me. And I did. I said, Fonzie wants to see you. Fonzie wants to see you. Fonzie wants to see you. And they walked over. I said, here's everybody, Fonzie. And there was another, they were sitting in a circle. He said, sit down to me. I went, oh. And he said, this meeting is about you. And he pointed at me like that. He said, I need you to know that it hasn't gone unnoticed that you show up here and that you do everything that's asked of you and more, that you work hard, that you clearly want to be on this team. And I'm here to tell you that everybody sitting in this circle over the last several weeks has come to me and asked me to step up to the office and get you hired and get you on the payroll. Congratulations, starting next week, you'll be getting a check. You're full-time ECW. And everybody shook my hand and hugged me. And dude, I could almost tear up thinking about that now. I mean, what a huge honor that was. These guys became my very good friends, and some of them aren't even in the business anymore. But at the time, I greatly looked up to them. They were on television every week. They were on every show, and I just wanted to be one of them, I apologize. My father keeps trying to call. So if there was anything with my audio right there, I was hanging up. At any rate, so that started that run. That's how I got in there. Just showed up. And that's all you can. That's what I teach my students to do. That's what you do. You show up, you work, you do what you can do. And you talk about paying your dues. That's a huge thing that's in our business. I hope that it's said and taught by everybody like I teach now. But in those days, in ECW especially, pay your dues, kid. Pay your dues. Pay your dues. And you talk about doing that. I would leave my house, drive whatever it was, depending on traffic, 3, 4, 5 hours to exit 53 on the Long Island Expressway, pick up the ECW ring truck, hop in that thing and drive it wherever we were. Could be Philadelphia, could be Orlando. That thing had a governor on it, so it wouldn't go more than 40 miles an hour. That wasn't a rib out by ECW. That's how they bought it when they bought it used, and they didn't spend any money to fix it because it's only ring crew and pay your dues, kid, right? So you had to leave earlier. If you're driving, think about that. If you can only go 40 miles an hour, and you're driving from New York to Orlando, how much earlier do you have to leave your family to be there on time, right? So I would do that, drive the ring truck, get there, set up the ring. I would be in charge. Me and the ring crew would be in charge of going to buy tables that day because, of course, ECW break tables every day. Staples, Home Depot, or not Home Depot, Staples, Office Max, and Office Depot. Look for them in every city. What was a tables and chairs and garbage can bill for each city of an ECW show? I don't really know, but I can tell you that those banquet tables are called 8-foot banquet tables. I remember paying between $28 and $32 for them. They're $150 now, which is why you see everybody going through doors and not tables. Yeah. So I don't know what happened to that market, but at any rate, so go buy tables or whatever we needed. Sometimes guitars, whatever we're told to get. Have to, doesn't matter if you're done doing your other job, have to be in the ring at 5 o'clock with Tracy Smothers to stretch out and work out. Have to do that. Me personally, I would then, and this was Tommy Dreamer doing me a favor because I had a family and it's another payday for me. I would then go sell t-shirts to the fans walking in, head to the back, get on my referee gear. I would wrestle, referee, ring announce from backstage if we didn't have a ring announcer on that loop, tear down the ring, go out, sell t-shirts to the fans on the way out, get in the ring truck, and we had to go to, or were at least encouraged, to go to the next town that night because we had to be there first before anybody else the next day. And I was low man, as we said, on ring crew. So who do you think had to drive? Who do you think had to sleep on the floor? All that stuff. So when people talk about, and I'm so much, I'm a much kinder trainer. I'm a much kinder veteran than I might have been years ago. I don't think I was ever mean to anybody. I was very much more drill sergeant like. But if somebody says, "Oh man, I had to drive 3 hours for there and all the way to that show, and I only got $50 or whatever," I'm like, I don't want to hear it. Do you want to be a wrestler or not? You know what I mean? So, I remember
the first time I got paid for commentary, I was like, this is, I get paid for this? You know what I mean? Like, I didn't know it was a thing. I would just go in and just being happy I was part of the environment and knowing I was paying my dues. I think the first couple times I got paid, I gave my pay to a talent. Like so at my thing is like, I felt like I had imposter syndrome for a long time. So I didn't feel like I belonged, but I remember the first time me and my buddy got paid, there was a wrestler. She just got off a really bad injury and she missed a lot of her bookings. And I got $20 and my buddy got $20 just for commentating and help production. And we both took our $20 together, and that could have been gas on the way home. And we both gave it to that talent because she missed 6 months of bookings. You know what I mean? Like,
that's awesome. Yeah. And that's a beautiful thing. I try to do that sometimes, especially if I know that we go to, especially for my students, but for anybody, but especially for my students, if we go to a show and I made a lot more than them, or maybe they didn't even get paid or something like that, you try to help, so Bubba Ray Dudley would do that for the ring crew. Sometimes he'd come over and pay for our meal because, and that was always appreciated. You always remember those things. You always remember Jerry Lynn every single night coming out and thanking the ring crew before he left. You say goodbye to everybody at the end of the night, right? That's the business. But he, and he alone, not that anybody else was a jerk. Some people were, but not that they necessarily were, but he made it a point to come thank the ring crew every night. Next time we're on a show together, check out what me and my boys do. We always thank the ring crew, always, because how are you going to do this without a ring, and it just makes life so much easier, if you feel appreciated, if you can be generous when you can be to other people, and maybe when you need it, they'll be generous with you. And it's, it's still a special thing. We talked earlier about it being, we might've even been talking about this off air, but about feeling like you're in a special club, being a pro wrestler. And that's part of it, that's part of it, being taking care of each other, being generous with each other, looking out for the boys, and by the boys, I mean these badass women that are wrestling with us now too, but they're the boys, and, so, beautiful thing, man. I still feel so lucky to do it, And as a matter of fact, while I'm being all philosophical, every seminar I ever teach, every student that's ever walked through my doors, another thing I always mention is if there's one thing that professional wrestlers can do better than anybody else on the planet, it's bitch about stuff. They can say, "Oh man, my payoff was the shits. That ring sucked. My match was so terrible. There's no way I should have lost to that guy." They bitched each other in the car on the way home. And I get it. As long as you're in the car and nobody's around, you don't talk like that. But you're venting in the car on the way home. But I ask everybody that I ever speak to, and ask to any wrestlers or aspiring wrestlers that are listening to this, that if when you're saying, "God dang it, I should have made more money," or "Oh, my match stunk," if you just take a second to think, man, all I ever wanted to do was be a pro wrestler, and I just did it. Not very many people can say that. There's tons of pro wrestlers. I don't know how many there are, but even if there were 1 million, and I don't think there are, there's 8 billion people on the planet. There's not very much of us, and if you can just once in a while remember, man, the thing I've loved most in my life, I just got to do, be it in front of 13 people in a shitty ring in a cornfield, which we've all done, or God willing, in some nice arena with several hundred, several thousand, whatever people there. It's all I ever wanted to do, and I just got to do it. Yeah, man. I hope next time I make more money, my match is a little better. But I'm blessed. I'm lucky.
Yeah. Hey, honestly, one of the things I used to do as well is I walk into an arena, and I would look at 15 people who showed up at the show just for that opportunity, and they didn't get a match, and you did, or they would have loved to be on commentary or being a ring announcer or been getting some type of any type of nut at the show that day, and they didn't, and you did. You know what I mean? So you kind of and you drove 4 hours, and that guy lived down the block. You know what I mean? You just gotta. That's a thing to look at for too, and be thankful for.
For sure. And if you can also try to not get so frustrated when you don't get something, because maybe next time you will. There's only so many spots. So
there's been times where I went to shows, got nothing, but I made 3 new connections and 3 new friends, and then I went to a show that was another 4 hours away, and they were my friend backstage because we made that connection at a show before.
Exactly.
So transitioning from ECW, you go to the next company that is revered and regarded as a very bright spot in professional wrestling history, of ROH. Now, you said your style of wrestling is when it looks like a shoot fight, like when you watch it and you believe it's real. ROH, that was its bread and butter.
100%. And I wasn't as good, and still I'm not now, as some of those people like a Bryan Danielson, as far as like almost doing a work MMA thing.
Yeah, I
love that. When I say I like it looking like a shoot, I mean, like, I like working matches with the intent to win, not the end. That's what I find entertaining. Not, you'll never see me. Not that, and part of the reason is because I can't do it. Let's be clear. But you'd never see me, whatever, do a double backflip and land on my feet and have something, be very impressive looking, but in no way does it help me win the match, and throw my arms up and ask for applause, type of thing. Maybe if I'm a cocky heel, but I'm saying by and large, you know what I mean? I'm trying to win. I'm going for a cover. It's a big move, go for a cover. So that's all Ring of Honor.
I just watched a whole documentary, the dark side of Junkyard Dog. Junkyard Dog he knew 6-7 things, and he did those 6-7 things very, very well, and he made a career of 6 or 7 things. Yeah.
Well, it's about making a connection with the people, but at the same time, and even though you might not look at all those 6 or 7 things and think they're all real, he also wasn't winking at the camera, you know what I mean, and saying, "Oh, this is all baloney." He's cutting promos like his life depended on it. You know what I mean? He needs to win this match. Ring of Honor. The guys from RF Video, Gabe Sapolsky, Rob Feinstein, Doug Gentry, they started that. God bless Doug. He's passed away now. Did several years ago. I had reached out to them when I saw they were going to start something, and I knew them from ECW. They were on the road full time with ECW, and I sent them a tape and all those things, and said, "Yeah, come on in." So, how that actually worked out, another one of those lucky happenstance things for me. They wanted to. I was going to be in a tag team, obviously, and that ended up being Tony DeVito. There was another guy. Nobody knows this. Almost nobody knows this. There was another guy the first time, but that shit the bed. And I love the guy, and I don't want to bury him. I'm not even going to say his name now, just for that reason. But I started with a different partner, and that Murphy Recreation Center packed full of rowdy Philadelphia fans, and he couldn't hang, so he wasn't invited back. And I was told to pick a new tag team partner. I said Tony DeVito, and the Carnage Crew was born. That's how that happened. But the very first show, they knew they were the successor to ECW. Maybe that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
And in ECW, I was the wrestling referee, the extreme official. I'd wrestle in a referee outfit. So I refereed the first match in Ring of Honor history. So I get to have that distinction of being the very first in-ring talent to ever walk through a curtain for Ring of Honor, and then that, long story short, there's a lot of cool matches, a lot of cool times that evolved in the Carnes crew with myself and Tony DeVito. We still team now. And we got to be world tag team champions. And we were in there with the Briscoes and the SATs and the back seats. And it was great times, man. Very, very lucky.
Mm-hmm. And some of them names you just said still on the scene right now.
I got to wrestle backseats tomorrow. Not Trent, God bless him, but Johnny and the new backseats are coming in to my show tomorrow. So yeah.
The new backseats are very, very impressive. Them I seen them work at the Win show that we were at together. They actually, I think they beat you up a little bit that show.
That's right. Yeah,
I think they beat you up a little bit. But
that was. I
think those new kids are talented, but I think your crew you could roll up there with. You got some young good guys too.
Yeah, we're gonna do a 6-man on Saturday of Johnny Cashmere and the new backseats versus me and CXR, TJ Epics and Chael Connors. So yeah, that's gonna be pretty cool. So pretty excited about that one.
That's what promotion will that be at?
That's Excite Wrestling. That's my school is affiliated with Excite Wrestling right now. My school is called the Fighting Arts Pro Wrestling Institute, located in Horseheads, New York, inside the Arnott Mall. Actually, it's a really cool location. It's a beautiful, beautiful spot. Yep. And we run a Excite Wrestling show there every month. That's tomorrow. And then Excite Wrestling has had a building in Binghamton, in the Binghamton Mall as well.
Yep.
So we'd always run 2. And actually, though, that mall has been sold. And this Saturday is our last show at the one in Binghamton. So that's going to be a special night for us. Yeah, we're going to get another building up there. We just don't have one yet. But in the meantime, we're just going to run my building in my school once a month. And we have spot shows coming up. We have Speedy Fest, it's called, in Binghamton, New York. If you ever had chicken speedy, stuff like that was invented in New York, and they have in Binghamton, New York. And they have a 3-day festival, like big fair for it every year. And they spend a bunch of money and they bring in concerts, and we're going to wrestle there 3 days in a row. We got Kurt Angle coming in, Matt Cardona coming in, so it's one of those cool festival type shows where you can spend a little bit of money on talent, so it'll be fun.
I was at a con. It was a con / wrestling show in Binghamton. Team JD threw it. It was like maybe 2 years
that's right.
ago.
I saw you.
That was a cool show. That's a really nice venue. That gym is beautiful.
Yeah, that was a nice place. Yeah, I felt bad for me at making money that day, but it was a nice show. Yeah.
Yeah. It was a big venture for a first time show. He put a lot of work into it, but a lot of big names there. A lot of cool matches happened that night. A lot of people that were on TV, a lot of ECW legends were there. It was a really fun time, but that was like right down the street from the mall. That wasn't too far away.
Not at all. No. Yeah. As a matter of fact, Excite Wrestling co-promoted that. But it didn't as we saw, it didn't do all that well crowd wise, but it's easy for me to say because you and me didn't spend our money on it, but it's one of those, well, at least it was a fun day, type of thing. So
the whole time I was like, I'm having a blast, but I kept looking over and I'm like, I feel so bad for him.
Yeah. Tears in his eyes
every now and then. Yeah. That was a rough one, but I got to call Tommy Dreamer versus who did Dreamer wrestle that night? It was supposed to be Dreamer Incredible, but Credible he didn't perform. He was just ringside. I forget who it was now.
Yeah, that was my match. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it was you. Yeah, you versus Dreamer. Yeah, I'm an idiot.
Yeah, they wanted it to be. We do that every time.
It was a triple threat. Right? It was supposed to be a triple threat.
Well, I don't know what we call him PJ, Just Incredible. I don't know what he was supposed to do, but he was going to come out. But they wanted it to be me versus Dreamer. I don't know if Dreamer doesn't ever want to wrestle me or what, but every single time I'm booked to wrestle him, it's because we're both baby faces, depending on the city.
And you spit on people and you grab people by the junk. I wouldn't want to wrestle you,
right.
You either.
I learned it from him. It's true. but every time I'm supposed to wrestle Tommy, Dreamer says, you know what? Why don't we start wrestling each other and we'll have a couple of heels come out and then you and me will face them. We've probably done that half a dozen times.
Right.
I've still never
your
had
voice came out. Siren Rain, a kendo stick. That's right.
Yep. Yeah. That was a fun day. Yeah,
that was fun. That was awesome. And then I got to see Arn that day. That was really fun.
Arn was great. Yeah, Arn was great.
You know who really impressed me that show? And I think she needs more time on TV. Julia Hart did a really good job.
Yeah.
She doesn't get nearly enough TV time. I was really impressed with her ring work.
Yeah. That's kind of they're making money and God bless them. And Tony Khan can spend his money any way he wants to. But some of those folks who are so green, I mean, but have all the potential in the world, if they're super lucky, they wrestle once a week, and most of them don't. You know what I mean? So,
Yeah.
I mean, and then you have to weigh that out. Is it really smart for a contracted talent that's getting paid all this money to be allowed to go work independent shows where they could have a shitty ring and get hurt? But then again, if they don't, how are they ever going to get any better? Because it's not having a 6-minute TV match or even a 10-minute TV match where you're out there obviously learning on the job and you can see potential, but you can't get great that way. You can get a little better here and there, but it's I mean, like for instance, terrible. I'm not going to think of her name right now. I probably shouldn't even tell this story. But who's the big, beautiful lady that had the TBS champion for a long time? Jade Cargill. And I think they made a big deal out of it. And I'm not going to get the number exactly right that she went like 90-0.
Yeah.
56-0. Okay, that's even proves my point more. 56-0. Took her like 3 years to do that, or 2 or 3. I mean, if you're doing that, I mean, it's one thing if you're just an independent wrestler and it's kind of you're just coming up and it's kind of a hobby or something like that. But if you're doing this full time and she's not out working indies and you only get to do it in front of people, and that's where you learn is in front of people. We learn it in the school. We get it so it starts to click in front of people because you're out there saying, oh, if I wait a little bit longer before I do that, I'll get this reaction. You know what I mean? So you have to do it in front of people. And in 2 or 3 years to only get to do it 56 times for a contracted television talent, that's an uphill battle. And she did great. I'm not a knock against her, but it's not really easy to get better that way.
Yeah. She was, what she was doing backstage that a lot of people weren't aware of. When she wasn't in the ring in front of a crowd, Daniel Bryan and William Regal would pull her aside and teach her stuff. Yeah.
And that's invaluable.
I love Chris Statlander, but I hate the way they transitioned that title off of Jade to her. Like after she already wrestled a match, I was like so bummed for that. And they changed Chris Statlander's whole gimmick and made her like she was different and she was special. And now they just made her like every other female on the roster, like a glam pretty girl. And I was like, that's not Chris. Like I want the boop. I want the alien. Who cares what people say on the internet? That's who you are. I love that about her. But that's a lot. How you say that too is like one of the things I learned a lot just from talking independent talent is that click moment, or aha moment, is when you're going to school and you're training and then you start doing that road work and then you're on your own and you're not with your buddies and you're traveling, and then that moment clicks where you're just like, oh my God, it came together. And it's usually that 5-minute conversation, 10-minute conversation to put your match together, and then you go in and perform it and you're like, oh, everything that I was being taught just came together. But yeah.
Hey, buddy, this is going to sound so lame, but remember me telling you that my dad was trying to call and I had to keep hanging up on him? Yeah. He just drove. Hold on a second. I got to talk to him for just everybody watching. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Hold on just a second. Hey, Pop. I hung up on you a couple times. I'm on a live interview right now online. So, yeah, and they can hear me talking to you right now. It's going out live on the internet. So I'll call you as soon as I'm done. We're going to be done in 2 minutes. Okay.
Yeah, 2 minutes. Yep.
That's all. We're going to be done in 2 minutes, and I'll call you. Or you can stay here if you want, and I'll talk to you in 2 minutes. Literally, I'm going to be done. Okay. Stay here if you want. Okay. All right, buddy. I'm back. That's my best friend. That's my pop. He's tattooed right there. Yeah, he's 88 years old. So I spend most of my days taking care of him, but he still worries about me. I'm almost 50, and I'm like, I'm still a little boy though.
In closing, HC, like, where can people find you? Where can people support you? And how can they find your school if they want to come train?
Oh, best thing you can do is if you just search me on Facebook. My shoot name is Matt Knowles. I don't know if you know this, but my mother didn't name me HC Loc.
Yeah.
But if you search HC Loc, it will come up. Or find me on Twitter at HC Loc1, and I can direct you to all that stuff. But it's called Fighting Arts Pro Wrestling Institute. That's on Facebook as well. And of course, excitewrestling.com. That's who I'm still an independent wrestler, but that's where I'm most closely affiliated with, and I co-promote the shows and things of that nature. And again, I really think that we offer a curriculum at my school that can really get you ready to do this for whatever level you want. If it's a hobby, as long as you take it seriously and you work hard, you're welcome. if you think that this is something that you might want to do for a career, I strongly believe that I have the knowledge and the experience where I can help try to get you there. So please, everybody who's interested, get a hold of me, and we'll get to work.
And I'll tell you right now, his group of people that you will be traveling with, learning from, not just from him, but his students are, I'm not bullshitting, are some of the most talented group of people I've ever seen in my life. They're, if you think he's the way he conducts himself and it just really, really personable, and just his whole team is the same way, hit up that school if you're in the New York area, or if you're willing to make the drive and do that sacrifice. I think the biggest thing you pull out of this is just, if you want something bad enough, you got to work for it. You're going to have to struggle. You're going to have to not make some money. You're going to have to not be around the people you love. But if you want to chase your dream, that's what comes with it. Matt,
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for this. I appreciate you so goddamn much.
Thanks,
and
Thank you for having me.
I can't wait till we bump each other again down the road, and just keep doing what you're doing, man. I'm proud of you.
Thanks, man. I really appreciate you. Let's do this again sometime.
Absolutely. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning into the ABJ podcast. That's going to do it for episode 69. Here's some music by the Converse kid, Billy Trey. We'll see you next time. We're out of here.